This is Channel 13.
Living side by side, dreaming two by two. You are the reason that we do what we do for you. Yeah, for you. We do it for you on WIBW.
Welcome in on this Throwback Thursday to another edition of our WIBW Video Vault. We've got a couple things planned for you today, and one of them is actually pretty cool. There's a performer who's going to be at the Topeka Performing Arts Center. You saw him on Eye on Northeast Kansas earlier this week. Oh, this is Doug. Hi. I'm Melissa Ritter. Doug Brown, our chief photojournalist here, he's been in charge of this Video Vault project. And as Doug has been looking through the Video Vault, our archive system that we have here, he found a performer that's known to a lot of people, the Wakes family. And this is Eddie.
And I got a chance to meet Mr. Wakes several years ago. Phil Anderson has been friends with the family for a long time. He did an interview 2 or 3 years ago, so I got a quick chance to meet him there. Was going through the archive and the name popped up. So I thought, well, I'm going to put a little check mark by that name and come back to it later. And this is the later right now.
Yeah, exactly. He's actually going to be in concert Saturday at the Topeka Performing Arts Center, an unforgettable evening with Eddie Wakes. And we have those videos from way back when. Before we get to that, though, we do want to begin with some reflections on what's been happening in the southwestern United States. Of course, our parent company, Gray Media, we have several stations in Texas, and they are in the areas that have been impacted by the flooding. So our company is asking if you are able to support the Salvation Army's efforts in Texas. Together4TX.com is our fundraising effort for the Salvation Army and the relief efforts from the flooding there in New Mexico, or in Texas rather. And we will be showing a special program 5 o'clock Saturday here on WIBW that our sister stations in Texas will be producing to let you know about the devastation in Texas. But of course, another round of flooding followed, and that was in New Mexico. This is video of Ruidoso Downs, New Mexico, the racetrack that is there. Devastated by flooding. In the flooding in New Mexico, there actually were 3 people killed, a man and 2 children were killed. And this racetrack is very important to the Ruidoso Downs, to the Ruidoso, New Mexico community, because it is a very important source of tourism. They actually had to cancel last season's racing because of flooding, and then they put a lot of money into upgrades to protect it from flooding. And then this happened again. Their mayor down there actually had sent a note that they were going to be canceling this season as well. And this is the video that a lot of people saw yesterday from this particular flooding that also inundated the area around Ruidoso, a house being swept away by the floodwaters. So obviously, again, some very devastating impacts there. And if you are able to support the flooding relief efforts in that region of our country, there again is the website together4tx.com to help. WIBW, though, does have a special connection to Ruidoso, New Mexico, and that racetrack that you saw, Ruidoso Downs.
Well, yeah, for years and years, we've had, as you say, the connection to the quarter horses that race down there. Ralph Hipp did a feature back, I think, on our 50th anniversary. Spoke with George Logan and some of the other folks from the TV station's history from our past, and discussed a little bit about what took place down there, how we became involved in it, and how it kind of spread across the country, because the racetrack now, I mean, back then it was well known, but after its connection with WIBW, it became even much more well known for their quarter horses and the races and the big purses that they have.
And so the story that we're about to show, is it from our 13 at 65 project?
It's actually from our 50th anniversary.
Our 50th anniversary. Whoa. Yes. And the voice will be recognized. It is Ralph Hipp, I believe,
Ralph, yep,
did this story for you. So we want to give you a look back at the connection between WIBW and Ruidoso Downs, New Mexico.
Thad Sandstrom and his wife Milda ran with a new idea, horse racing in Ruidoso, New Mexico. Their interest in the All-American Futurity race sent Thad and this 13 crew to the racetrack there. Channel 13 became the flagship of the largest independent sports network in the nation, with 185 other stations reaching 30 million people.
Half the town of Fort Sumner is here, and the rest is on its way as we're getting ready for the Winner's Circle ceremony. Walter Matthau is here to make the official presentation, and we're ready to go with the Winner's Circle ceremony.
So he said, well, we can do it. We have expertise in basketball. We've done Big 8 basketball pickups over the years, and we had the equipment, and so we just did it.
But all those trips to New Mexico still didn't help our news camera situation in the studio.
They used to pack up about 80% of the staff and 90% of the equipment and take off for Ruidoso, New Mexico, and we would be left with one black and white camera in the studio to do newscasts, and it would swing back and forth from one anchor to the other.
Kind of fun. That was the late George Logan, the late Jerry Hawley involved there, and putting it all together, the late Elmer Gunderson, our chief engineer for many years here at WIBW until his passing. And we're actually fortunate to have a piece of memorabilia gifted to Elmer and some of the others who were involved in those productions for so many years.
Yes, Elmer began at the station in 1955, and he was still on the job when he passed away in 2013. And just a few weeks before he passed, he gave me this halter, his horse halter, which it's a nice halter, but what makes it especially nice is that it says the 1975 All-American Futurity. They gave it to Elmer and other key members of our crew that would go down there and help out. And this one actually has Elmer's name on it. So that's just really cool that he would give that to me and let me take care of this piece of history for a while.
So I'm sure Elmer and all our crew who worked on that would be heartbroken by what they're seeing in New Mexico, just as all of us are heartbroken by what we are seeing in Texas.
I'm going to take a quick peek here too. I'm looking at the 1975, so the year that Elmer was given this. Bugs Alive in 75. That was your winner at Ruidoso Downs. That was the winning horse.
Oh my gosh. So we mentioned 3 people were killed in the New Mexico flooding. More than 100 are now confirmed dead in the Texas flooding. Let's put this up one more time, together for TX.com. And that special program our Texas sister stations have been working very hard on will be Saturday, 5 p.m. on our air. We are going to switch gears, be a little bit more lighthearted when we return with our video vault for this week as we find Eddie Wakes. We can say we knew him way back when.
That's true.
You're going to see those stories from our video vault in 60 seconds. Welcome back into our Throwback Thursday WIBW Video Vault in the WIBW Digital News Center. I'm News Director Melissa Bruner alongside Chief Photographer Doug Brown. Doug, this is quite the task to go through our archives that we have here. It's 3/4-inch videotape. If you don't know what that is, yeah, exactly.
It's large, it's heavy, it should not be around anymore because it deteriorates, and you know, probably shouldn't be still functioning right now, but the machine is functioning, knock on wood.
Knock on whatever surfaces we have.
Yes.
And as you've been going through, you've been kind of taking note of some of the more interesting things, people you recognize, names you recognize, because you're kind of doing, it is all in real time. And you came upon this performer.
Yes. Well, what first caught my eye was that a little bit before we'd had a story on Up With People. Back in the 80s, They would bring
They were
young
a big
people
deal.
Well, they came to this area, and when I was in middle school, I don't know, we got the opportunity. They loaded us on the bus. They took us to see Up With People. You know, we had a good time. But obviously, there's one gentleman here in town who had a better time than we did because, well, he kind of launched a career off of it.
Yes, his name is Eddie Wakes. He was a student at Highland Park High School. Eddie actually will be in concert this Saturday at the Topeka Performing Arts Center. He did music for La La Land. He has endorsements of people who admire him that include people like Morgan Freeman, Elvis Costello. So some pretty important people know who Eddie Wakes is. We got to see him way back when, and here he is.
Loved it. It was so energetic, full, so power-packed, and it just, the energy and electricity just flowed to the audience and got the whole audience involved.
This is Eddie Wakes, a senior at Highland Park High School. Eddie was encouraged to apply to be a member of Up With People, and earlier this month received this letter telling him he was accepted. Now that's the good news. The other news is Eddie needs $5,800 by next July for his expenses on the tour, so that's put him to work. One place he stopped was here at the Topeka Youth Project, where he had enrolled in a job hunting class. And you learn quickly he's a popular guy here and will get some help.
Any way I can. I can't give him $5,800, but I can help him with some ideas and arrange some of the typing and things that he's going to need.
A lot of that includes letters to businesses, churches, and anyone else that could help. And Eddie has his own quartet. He hopes they can sing to raise money for the tour, and hopefully some private individuals may chip in too. Eddie also spent time at the doctor's office today getting a required physical, another step in his 6-month trek to here, on stage. At the Youth Project, they said it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. You know, they may be right. Warren Parker, WIBW News.
Warren Parker was a pretty fun reporter, Doug. You've been finding a lot of pieces from him. And so that was before when he was first accepted, and obviously performing was kind of a big deal and a big piece of fun for him. So you found more.
I did. We always like to check back in when we can on a story, and we knew $5,800. This was not just a few years ago. $5,800 is still a lot of money, but back then that was a huge amount. So we caught back up with him a few months later.
And here's what he had to say then. Yeah.
This was Eddie Wakes last December, anxious for the opportunity to travel, perform, and receive that special education that Up With People can provide. He was $5,800 away from his dream then, but by this week, he's had some help.
The community were more than helpful. They gave me money, sometimes in excess amounts. The businesses, one of my more stronger advocates in businesses of Topeka was Paul Richards, and he was very instrumental in helping me raise my financial necessities. And the churches was a stronger point as well, and different programs were put on.
And that has put Eddie here on stage like these performers. He's already traveled to much of the U.S., and there's a lot more planned.
We'll be going to Sweden, we'll be going to Norway, Denmark, Finland, and possibly, depending on the Geneva talks, we had in a cultural attaché from the Soviet Union. And if all goes well in Geneva, we'll be in the Soviet Union in Leningrad.
Eddie is still about $1,000 away and still needs some help, but he still can't believe all that has happened already. And for those that have helped, he's got a big thanks.
I would say thanks so much. If I had arms long enough to do so, I would hug them all.
Once you get to know Eddie, you figure for those that have helped, it was probably their pleasure. Warren Parker, WIBW News.
Warren Parker again. I will tell you, so Eddie was in the studio earlier this week, and yeah, a little Poor Richards shout out there. A lot of old residents of Topeka, older, those who are of a certain age, remember. I don't remember it. I think it had closed by the time I moved here.
Right about that time.
But yes, Poor Richards, a very iconic location.
Well, and maybe that might be another feature down the line, because Poor Richards used to set over in the 9th and Quincy area, and then they built the Santa Fe office buildings, so that's when they moved over to Kansas. But obviously, during that whole time, they were still very active in the community because they were helping Eddie out.
Are you finding some of those videos too?
Well, I have some of those. My list is getting longer by the day.
I got to tell you, he comes out, he'll see like, oh, and he tells me this story, and I said, well, wow, where did you see that? And he'll like, oh, it was 1980 something. I'm like, okay, I thought it was happening today, and you're telling me about it. So these stories are very interesting, and some of them are very. It's interesting to see how some issues come full circle and how the backstory behind some of the things that we have in Topeka. Eddie, by the way, again, in concert Saturday evening at the Topeka Performing Arts Center. When he came in the studio for Eye on Northeast Kansas earlier this week, I told him, oh, we found some video of you. And we showed a little bit of it over the interview. And as soon as it came on, he went, oh, boy. There are 9 children, I believe, in his family. And I said, well, are they just going to fill up TPAC on their own? And he said, oh, there's going to be quite a few of them there. So their family, he got his start going around performing with his siblings, with his brothers, and so.
Well, Bill Anderson, once again, pointed out some of the video to me the other day. He said, just watch this. He sent me a little copy, texted it to me, and you just talk about a talented performer. Really, really is.
Oh, I'm excited. It's great American classics, smooth voice, and he's just a joy to visit with when he was in the studio earlier this week. So we hope you enjoyed going back into the video vault for both of those topics with us. We have a lot of years of video and stories that we have told and are telling and will continue to tell, and so these are some of the fun ones.
And you pointed out Warren Parker did both of those stories.
Yes.
Warren had a regular series, I would say, a regular reappearing every week. I believe it was called Parker's People. I'm not positive, but I have not gotten I've known Warren for a long time, haven't spoke with him for a while, but I might get a hold of him and just see if it's okay if we pull a few more of those out, because he traveled to some really interesting places and talked to very interesting people, and not just people. There were a couple were involved more than people. So.
All right, there you go. That's your tease. Thanks for being with us this week. Have a great Thursday, everyone. See you next time from the Video Vault.